Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, free site, dwyervip.com, free site. Today is January the 13th, 2018. Let's talk about the upcoming heavyweight title fight between Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, in my opinion, this fight is a betting opportunity. It's badly mispriced. Luis Ortiz right now is a greater than 2-to-1 underdog. I believe that represents compelling value. The bet I'm recommending here is to take the challenger, Luis Ortiz, at 9-4, hedged with Deontay Wilder by knockout. Right? I personally believe that the heavyweight title changes hands here. But if I'm wrong, then if Deontay Wilder gets the KO, I'm still covered. Let's talk about why I think Luis Ortiz wins this fight. I know he's 38 years old. 38. Soon to be 39. He turns 39 in March. But understand, heavyweights age more slowly than the rest of us. Also understand that technicians, right? Technicians age even slower. Luis Ortiz does not rely on hand speed. He doesn't rely on his youth to beat you. He's a guy playing angles. He's a guy with a set of skills that allow him to dominate an opponent deep inside the pocket. And I believe that's what he's going to do here. Right? For Wilder to win this fight, in my opinion, Wilder's going to have to get on his back foot. He's going to have to find a way to keep Luis Ortiz from collapsing the pocket. Right? Why? Because Wilder, in my opinion, cannot come close. Let me repeat that. Cannot come close to matching Luis Ortiz on the inside. So he's going to have to create space against a fighter who knows how to cut off the ring and who has already beaten some fighters with better legs than Deontay Wilder. Right? Understand, Luis Ortiz fought Malik Scott, who has, in my opinion, better legs than Deontay Wilder. He drops Malik Scott 3 times. Right? He fights Bryant Jennings, who, in my opinion, has better legs than Deontay Wilder. He stops Bryant Jennings. Right? Ortiz is a guy who knows how to catch up with you, and he doesn't do it by great physical gifts. Rather, he knows how to cut off the ring. He also understands that if he gets inside, where Ortiz has an assortment of punches. First, understand Ortiz is a southpaw. Right? What that means is that Ortiz is going to be able to neutralize Deontay Wilder's jab. So Wilder's going to have to pot shot him. Now, I know boxing purists will tell you that the way to beat a southpaw is with a straight right hand, and I understand that Deontay Wilder has an excellent straight right hand. That's his bread and butter. But he won't be able to set up the punch. Right? And Ortiz, very technically gifted, is not going to allow a guy with one big tool in his toolkit to catch him. Let me also point out, too, that Wilder's heavyweight reign is a little bit of an illusion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to name the guys who Wilder has fought in his heavyweight reign. You tell me which one is the elite heavyweight. He wins the title against Dwyer. He then fights Eric Molina, a fight in which Molina hurts him, has a chance to win the fight, but is unable to close the deal. Right? Wilder wins that fight by knockout. He then fights Dwyer. Right? That fight makes it to the 11th round before Wilder gets the stoppage. He then fights Artur Szpilka. Right? 9th round KO. He fights Chris Arreola, who takes the fight on short notice. Right? Let's just say by Arreola standards, Arreola was not in top condition for that fight. He wins that fight by 8th round stoppage. He then fights in what I believe is his most intriguing fight, Gerald Washington. Now understand, at the end of 4 rounds in the Washington fight, a fight in which Wilder is heavily favored, and Washington, unlike Ortiz, is afraid to get deep in the pocket, right? Washington's doing things like shooting jabs to the body. He's not doing a Luis Ortiz of getting inside, throwing hooks, then turning them into uppercuts, right? Understand, at the end of 4 rounds, 2 of the 3 judges, in a fight in which Wilder is heavily favored, right? In a fight that takes place in Wilder's backyard of Birmingham, Alabama, 2 of the 3 judges had that fight a draw after 4 rounds, right? And Washington, quite frankly, is fighting cautiously. He doesn't throw caution to the wind, as I think Luis Ortiz is going to do, right? The Washington fight is fought at a much more measured pace than I believe Luis Ortiz is going to fight at. Why? Because Luis Ortiz at times has blitzed opponents, right? Knocks down Tony Thompson 3 times. The next fight that Deontay Wilder has is a rematch against who? Slow-footed Dwyer. Now, none of the guys that Deontay Wilder has fought to date are as talented and pose as much of a challenge as Luis Ortiz does. Right? Now, I'm just telling you that Luis Ortiz is going to cut off the ring on Deontay Wilder. I'm just telling you that I expect Luis Ortiz to have Wilder on his back foot. One of the foundational questions in this fight is going to be whether Wilder can throw his A+ straight right hand backing up, right? That's the $1 million question. If he can't, then Luis Ortiz, by coming forward, collapsing the pocket, cutting off the ring, will have neutralized Deontay Wilder's best weapon. Let me also point out, too, that Chris Arreola gets inside on Deontay Wilder. Wilder showboats to the crowd. Let's just say Wilder didn't quite know how to clinch and stop Chris Arreola on the inside. You're talking about a different level here than Chris Arreola. If Luis Ortiz gets on the inside, and again, he's a southpaw, the angles are going to be different, right? If he gets on the inside, and Wilder, who has power from long range, but might not have it from short range, right? If Wilder is unable to clinch Luis Ortiz, which is very hard to do, in such a manner that he ties up both of Ortiz's hands, this fight, in my opinion, could be a short fight, right? Wilder just doesn't have the body to take a lot of Luis Ortiz's body shots. Let me point out too, Ortiz is a gifted puncher. He doesn't have to headhunt Deontay Wilder. So to me, the stars line up here. Right? Ortiz is a guy with prodigious power who dropped both Malik Scott and Tony Thompson 3 times in their respective fights. Right? He's a technician who's going to come in, and for him, it's simple math. Avoid the right hand, get inside, do what you normally do. Right? Ortiz is also a big enough guy who knows how to use his shoulders. Watch his shoulders. To pin Wilder, he has the body mass where if he gets inside on Wilder and leans on Wilder, Wilder is going to have to back up and deal with it. I don't think Wilder can. Let me point out too, I know people are going to say, hey, you have something against Wilder. Right? I've heard that before, right? People think I have something personally against Anthony Joshua. Right? What you need to do is to figure out, are there parts of Wilder's game that are missing? Are there parts of Wilder's game that Bermane Stiverne, Eric Molina, Duhaupas, Spielka, Arreola, and Washington were not able to expose to the public that Luis Ortiz might be able to exploit? Right? Don't get too suckered by possession. Right? By who happens to be in first place on a given date or at the start of a fight. Right? The better question to ask is, does the guy's style match up well with his opponent's style? Right? Wilder, personally, to me, is a breath of fresh air for the heavyweight division. I think it's absolutely outstanding that a fighter from the South insists on having heavyweight title fights before people in the South. And Wilder also fights in places like the Barclays Center in New York City, right, where this fight is going to take place. In other words, Wilder will fight in big cities. Wilder is one of those rare heavyweights who is willing to travel. Let's remember, he was on the way to fight Alexander Povetkin in Russia when that fight got canceled. The guy was literally in transit, right? Wilder fights Audley Harrison in the United Kingdom. Wilder will cross an ocean for a fight. Wilder also, if you track his interviews, is a guy who knows boxing history, who will start talking about guys in history, and who you get the feeling isn't satisfied merely being heavyweight champ. Right? He wants to fight Luis Ortiz. Quite frankly, he wants to fight Anthony Joshua. He wants to fight Joseph Parker. Wilder is a warrior. I have the utmost respect for Wilder the man. But this is part of the gambling section of the internet. Right? This is the tough neighborhood where we ask the tough questions and where we have skepticism even on the guys wearing belts when they're facing opponents who are greater than 2-to-1 underdogs. At the end of the day, I don't believe Wilder has the skills to deal with Luis Ortiz on the inside. Right? Wilder has an advisor, Mark Breland. Right? Folks, I was raised in New York City. I was a big Mark Breland fan of the 1980s. I didn't think Mark Breland had the skills as a fighter to deal with fighters on the inside. Right? I don't see the person in Wilder's corner who's going to be able to show him, and keep in mind, I have the utmost respect for Mark Breland, but I just don't see the person in Wilder's corner who's going to show him how to suddenly get the skills to handle a Luis Ortiz on the inside, right? Wilder would need Roberto Duran advising him, wouldn't he? Right? He would need Marvin Hagler advising him. Let me also point out that Wilder has been in the game long enough, right? You're talking about an Olympic medalist. You're talking about a guy who's had almost 40 fights. He's been in the game long enough where he should be doing better inside. Now, all I can say is there's certain athletes, in my opinion, and we, again, have to make hard decisions here. Right? People will say you're jumping to conclusions. Folks, if you're a gambler, you have to jump to conclusions. Right? There's certain athletes who are hardwired. In other words, the guy's been in the game a long time, but he's hardwired to do what works for him. He's not a guy who is going to venture into the part of his game that doesn't work for him, that he needs to improve on. So, let me just say this. Magic Johnson, one of my favorite athletes of all time, the basketball player, the Los Angeles Laker Hall of Famer. Right? When Magic Johnson came in the league, folks, he couldn't shoot. Right? He did a lot of things well. Phenomenal passer. Could play multiple positions. Guard, forward, center, whatever it took. Play center in an NBA Finals. And dominates after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar gets injured. Right? Magic could do a lot of things. But there was some part of Magic Johnson that led him to develop a three-point shot. Right? Same thing with Jason Kidd. In other words, all the things Magic and Jason Kidd could do, these guys just needed to do things that they weren't good at. They needed to work at it and improve on it. That's just who they were. That was their DNA this year in basketball. Kevin Durant at times has led the league in block shots. Right? This is a guy who's the dominant scorer in the NBA. Multiple scoring titles. Right? But there's some part of Kevin Durant where being a great scorer and being a great passer is not enough. Right? The guy is a craftsman who works on parts of his game like block shots. I don't believe that's Deontay Wilder. Right? I believe there's so much pressure to win that Deontay Wilder is a guy who can't dribble with his other hand. He's the basketball player who's great at going to his right and who decides to ignore his left hand. His inside skills, to me, aren't there. Right? Luis Ortiz, by contrast, is not the athlete Deontay Wilder is. But he's approached the sport from the technician point of view. Right? This is the Juan Manuel Marquez, this is the Floyd Mayweather mindset, where Ortiz thinks about things like defense. Ortiz can beat a guy who's operating from the outside with a jab like Malik Scott. Look at Ortiz's head. Look at how his head's always low. He comes in, he's thought things through. He's the guy who can fight left-handed. In other words, well, since he's a southpaw, he's the guy who can fight right-handed. The other guy has a strategy to defeat him. Ortiz is a chess player. Bernard Hopkins, another technician. Right? I just think when you see a technician, especially in a fight like this, where for whatever reason, Luis Ortiz is better than 2-to-1 underdog, and he's fighting a guy who's getting by really on a plan A. In other words, Wilder is the fastball pitcher who throws 100 miles an hour. Right? That right hand is one of boxing's best punches. Right? The question is whether Wilder has other pitches I don't believe he does. I like Luis Ortiz here at better than 2-to-1 odds. Right now he's 9-4. You can check the odds on oddschecker.com. Right? I like Luis Ortiz here to win the fight. Again, you're getting better than 2-to-1 odds. Hedged with Wilder by knockout. But what I want you to do is to understand the risk involved. Right? If Wilder finds a way to survive on his back foot, Wilder has a pretty good jab. And if Wilder is able to stay away from Ortiz for 12 rounds, and if Wilder, the champ, the favorite, coming in, fighting in Barclays where he just beat Bermane Stiverne, right? Wilder's going to have some fans in the crowd there. People who remember his dominant performance against Stiverne. If Wilder's able to survive for 12 rounds and shoot enough jabs on Luis Ortiz and stay away, and if Wilder wins a decision, you lose it all. That's the risk I'm willing to take. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. I like the underdog here to win, hedged with the champ by stoppage. That's how I see this fight. Let me hear how you see it. I hope you leave those comments here online in the comment section to this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.